Welcome to RSA Conference. We are here recording live from Broadcast Alley in Moscone West. This interview is sponsored by Swimlane. I'm your host, Akira Brand, and joining me today for this interview is Mike Lyborg, Chief Information Security Officer at Swimlane. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you for having us.
So, Mike, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Swedish by nature, born and raised, and have been in the U.S. for like 20 years, heavily focused on security since I've kind of moved here, and been with Swimlane for 7 years, and kind of watched it grow, and it's just been such an interesting and phenomenal ride. So still learning every day, but we have a pretty amazing product and great team.
So I would like to hear about the problems that your product solves.
Yeah. So if I go back to early days, one thing that I didn't necessarily enjoy doing was the same thing over and over again.
Yes.
So even if you build a bunch of scripts, they become hard to kind of maintain and manage. So what Swimlane does as a product, right, is we centralize and unify the management of using all these API calls to integrate and orchestrate with very disparate tools in order to kind of bring them all together into our system of record, is what we call it, to then see from a holistic risk management perspective how all the different signals kind of interact and work together. So we ultimately end up helping out our security teams with investigations, forensics, and case and incident management, and the triage thereof, right?
Beautiful. So it sounds like the main users of this product would be security teams.
You would think so. That's often how we start. But the
Okay.
cool thing about automation orchestration, and this is what I'm pretty passionate about, is you can then obviously start automating orchestration, IT, and identity, and messaging, and collaboration. So it's not just security investigations, but it's often a really good place to start because it's where most organizations suffer to keep up.
I see. Okay. So another part of Swimlane, from what I understand, is the marketplace.
Yeah, so we're super excited about that. Historically, automation requires processes, and so there's more than one way to boil an egg, right? Maybe, but so we take all this content, and what we've done, we've created or facilitate kind of like a platform where you can go ahead and now we can share. So the initiatives in order for us to take these modular playbooks and actions and integrations, literally connectors to the ecosystem in your IT and security enterprise systems, to make it very, like, we can accelerate that journey to make sure that you get your use cases up and running and you're receiving immediate value.
Okay. So if I, as an AppSec engineer, wanted to get involved with Swimlane, where would I start?
Yeah, I would definitely obviously start visiting swimlane.com, but you can also from there get our links to go and look at the marketplace.
Okay.
We often see data on like, well, we have so many integrations and so many, X, Y, and Z, but to us it's also about quality and closing the feedback circle to take these modular components and allow our end users and customers and partners in our ecosystem to then also feedback. So they may solve an AppSec use case and automate that in a playbook and a couple of components. So we can then take that modular and submit it back in, verify the code and everything else is to our standards, and then anybody in the world can go ahead and download that and enable those kind of functions in their systems.
So I know in my own engineering work, sometimes we buy tools and we don't know how to tune them, right? So how can people get the most value out of Swimlane if they're just maybe new to the product?
Yeah, so we actually have a lot of customers. Let's say that they have a SIM that is not well tuned or some sort of signal source inside your whatever systems you have in place. So you get a lot of noise. Well, then just automating the noise isn't necessarily what I would recommend, but it may give you enough time to then go and build further tuning and see what signals need to be tuned from a true, false, positive kind of perspective and view. So looking at data over time, because we can then take like your identity on your endpoint and whatever signal source may be and put them all together in our system of record. So when you take all of those signals and normalize them, and now you can also see which systems are out of tune, and maybe you decide, well, I'm going to go ahead and offboard this tool and
Right.
onboard another one. Because you may have several years of data now, you can then also see what those trends, if they're driving business initiatives, if they're introducing new risk or friction between teams.
Got it.
So
So how do you measure those things? Like how do you know if this is actually helping your business or if it is reducing that friction? Like is that something that Swimlane can help with or how do you find that?
yeah, we often look at flash to bang, right? When it's in, let's say it's incident response or remediation.
Mm-hmm.
So your MTTR, your dwell time, your overall time. So depending on what the tools are in your stack, it's generally pretty easy to look and see what those times are, how they're affected
Mm-hmm.
during the implementation phase, and as you trend that over time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about a hot topic
Okay.
today. So of course AI is hot right now. It's a buzzword, it's a concept and it's an actual real technology.
Yeah.
So I want to hear what role do you see AI playing right now in cyber in general?
So I think just in general, I think it's phenomenal. You have basically two options, right? You can either embrace it and endorse it and figure out how to kind of mitigate risk by using it and put in the controls and everything else in place. When it comes to automation in our platform, um, the way that we built it out is with our own LLM. So we have our private LLM.
Mm-hmm.
So we can take all of these disparate siloed sources and ask it questions. So it's a lot of prompt engineering
Mm-hmm.
and then doing discovery, things you wouldn't normally see where we kind of built a fusion of all of this information. Because otherwise, if you're not a subject matter expert on your 30 tools in your security stack,
Yes.
now you're building 30 different queries to 30 different tools,
Yes.
and here by orchestrating, automating all those signals together, now you can ask it a simple question, and then that will float to the top, for example. So prioritizing cases and incident response can become pretty easy, or we can enable you to kind of have enhanced use of AI. I don't think we're going to replace people yet,
Right.
but we can definitely help people make better decisions at a faster rate.
So actually that was something I wanted to talk a little bit about is the AI problem that I see around a lot of there's a little bit of a panic around AI is coming for our jobs, it's coming for our decision making. So how does your product help people to make decisions with AI as opposed to just replacing people entirely?
Yeah, so it's a lot of contextualization, right? So maybe you're doing enrichment via cyber threat intelligence, or maybe you're looking at all of these different systems that normally don't talk well together. So bringing all the information into our platform then enables those analysts by having our artificial intelligence make sense out of all of what they're seeing.
Right.
So it may be like, hey, have you considered doing steps 1 through 5?
Right.
As it doesn't mean that they have to do it, but it gives them a starting point of next steps to do in maybe their investigation, or maybe it's a new like 0-day or CSEC. You got a known exploit or something coming out, a signal coming in. So you're like, well, does this impact us? And then possibly even then integrating with your customer comms to then reach back out to your customers and say, hey, we know everybody's worried about this new exploit.
Right.
We have hunted and looked through all of our systems, and it doesn't exist anywhere in our code base. So it makes everybody else, you can be proactive rather than reactive. So that's a huge, I think, advantage when it comes to AI of enabling us to query all these data sets.
It sounds like you're a big market differentiator in that way, right?
Yeah.
Like you have so much data that the AI can sift through. It sounds like you have your own private LLM that you've trained on this data. Um, what is the next section of maybe your product roadmap that you are going to integrate AI with?
Yeah, I think pushing it further out to the edge. So a
Okay.
lot of like our sensing fabric, so taking out our sensors and moving them further out. To have the ability to ingest information, maybe from IT, like OT systems as well. So getting a lot closer to the data sources rather than pushing everything into a mega lake and then
Right.
going and asking for it. Let's filter the noise on the edge,
Yes.
get the information that we need,
Yes.
but also making that centrally, like giving us the ability to enable our customers to centralize the management of all of those signals on the edge.
So I've heard you mention a word a couple times
Yeah.
now, and that word is noise.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're really passionate about reducing that noise. Can you tell us more about what you mean when you say noise and like how that fits in with your overall vision for Swimlane?
Yeah, I think you talked about tuning, right?
Right.
Tuning that kind of goes back into a lot of noise, but it could just be like noise to me. Maybe like if you ask me what I hate to do, it's reporting.
Yes.
So that's noise because in the old days I used to have to go to maybe our identity system and our EDR and all these different tools, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then export a CSV and build a pivot table and then
Yes.
merge all that data together. Um, so that's noise to me. It's a waste of my time, right?
Got it.
So by automating all of that, now it becomes repeatable, predictable, and
Mm-hmm.
as we interview the consumers of the information, maybe it's the board, maybe it's the rest of the leadership team, or maybe it's your vulnerability management program. Like, what do you want to see in this report? What's the frequency you want it? And once you build that, now you just press schedule, and now you don't have to deal with it. So it,
Beautiful.
it it frees you up to focus on the really important things.
Yes. Okay, so I know in my own engineering work, noise is a huge issue. We're constantly triaging things potentially that don't actually matter. And so I'm really glad to hear that Swimlane has this market differentiator here that they can really cut through that noise.
Yeah, and I think especially with the marketplace, the focus there is truly to take all of our lessons learned.
Mm-hmm.
So we're very fortunate. We have some really large partners and customers. So take what they're building out,
Mm-hmm.
making that modular and making it easy for the rest of our customers to consume via our marketplace.
So my next question for you is a little bit of a pivot.
Okay.
And I would like to talk to you about what you're seeing in the security space as far as software security and how that fits in with Swimlane.
Yeah, I think just supply chain in general.
Mm-hmm.
Third-party risk is always everybody's concern, right?
Yes.
And as we continue to build out our enterprise ecosystem, no matter what really vertical you're in,
Mm-hmm.
you're obviously introducing risk. So the supply chain and then software security in general, application security,
Mm-hmm.
making sure that we truly focus on the code that is written.
Mm-hmm.
And then getting rid of that noise, because a lot of times when you import libraries or whatever you may be doing, you may not call everything in that code base. You may just use a snippet, and then someone, downstream then picks up a vulnerability or an exploit. But if it's never callable, like, it's still going to show up in scanners.
Right.
So we got to figure out, like, help the application security engineers, our developers,
Mm-hmm.
and our product vulnerability risk mitigation teams, enable them to sift through the noise
Beautiful.
and actually see what's active and what should be prioritized.
So to wrap up here, we have a couple more minutes.
Okay.
I would like to know, what is your ideal customer? So if someone is listening to this right now, those are listeners out there, if someone was to use Swimlane, like what job title would they have? What functions would their job be, and how are you and those customers finding each other?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think from a market perspective, the large organizations generally thrive in the ecosystem where they have set processes, maybe as written, right?
Right.
So it says like, hey, step 1, do this. Step 2, 3, 4.
Yes.
So historically, we would target larger enterprises because it was easy to say if this, then that.
Right.
Now we're seeing with our marketplace and the consumption of some of these components and how easy it is to take, well, I'm swapping out EDR platform 1 to 2. You don't have to redo your playbooks and your workflow. You just, hey, we're taking in signals now from A and we're swapping it to B. So now we can see, like, down market, mid market, and then help them accelerate their risk management programs as well.
Beautiful. Okay, well, you know what, Mike? We are just about at time. Do you have any last thoughts for us?
No, just automate. I really can't. Like, we do so many investigations every year with a really small team. We're always here. I would say swing by our booth or hit us up and let us help you automate your your security and risk management programs.
Beautiful. Well, Mike, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you to all our listeners. For more information on Swimlane, visit securityweekly.com/swimlane RSAC. Thank you again, Mike.
Thank you.